You're live or going live. Hey, this is Michelle Martin Dobbins, and I am here with Joanna Hunter of joannahunter.com. And she is such a magical person, so I am very excited to have her here. She is an entrepreneur and a spiritual woo-woo person, and she bridges that gap for all us spiritual woo-woos who are not entrepreneurial by nature. So I am really excited to have you here, and I'm going to peek and make sure that we're actually live on my page on my phone, because I can't always tell on my computer. But real quick.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Let's see. I see me now. The entrepreneurial by nature. So I think I'm going to turn the sound off. I'm going to peek and make sure. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that you are popping up on there and they get to see your beautiful purple hair. I love it.
I know, I've gone all lilac.
It's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, yes, we are good to go. So I'm so excited to talk to you because I've gotten to see your magic firsthand in some classes that we were both in. Yeah, so I know that you've talked about, I've read that you've had spiritual gifts for your whole life, and some that even other people that you didn't know that everybody didn't have. So I'm just a little bit curious if you could share about your childhood and the spiritual gifts that you've always known that you've had it, and kind of how that's evolved for you.
Definitely. I've literally been mediumistic and psychic since birth. So I thought everybody could see. I can see energy. I've always been able to see energy. So I thought everybody could see colors around everything. And, I see fields of energy moving and undulating around people all the time, like even on camera and things. So it's not even just I need to be in a room with a person. I can see it all the time. And I see it around buildings, and I see it around objects, even cars, whatever. Like I always thought that was just how everybody saw the world. And then I must have been about like 3.5, 4 when it dawned on me that maybe other people can see what I could see. In addition to that, at a very young age, I couldn't tell the living from the dead. So that sounds quite dramatical, but what that really means is a lot of people walk about with their spirit families around them. And I would have these wonderful, loving conversations, and I would turn around to somebody and say, "Oh, your grandmother is so lovely." And they'd be like, "My grandmother's been dead for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, "No, she's standing right there." And she might have told me that we're baking cookies later. So I would say, we're going to be baking cakes later. It's so exciting. And they're like, no. And a lot of that came to a head when I was about 5 years old, and my mom got a phone call from Sunday school to come and remove me. I'd given a message to the priest from his mother and several other people in the congregation. And it hadn't gone down very well, and they said, come and get your daughter, and don't bring her back.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So I was like, okay. So I mean, for me, it's a very natural thing. But when I started realizing that it would either frighten people, because for me, I've never, it's like imagine you didn't have a big toe, right? And you went through all life and you weren't born with one. And then you went through all of life with this big toe, and then suddenly you realize, like, oh, there should be a toe there, right? And then and people are like, and then people might get scared of the fact that you've only got 4 toes or something like that, right? Something weird like that, and people get a bit frightened. So you might then think maybe I should do something about that big toe that should be there,
Yeah.
And it was the same with my mediumship and with my, and I wanted just as a child, you just want to fit in. So I began to really push down my gifts massively. And the only thing I couldn't shut down was the seeing of energy. Everything else I was pretty good at squishing right down. It would only be in certain heightened energy circumstances where I maybe would feel the presence of somebody or something like that. And that worked really well right up until I hit puberty and everything went haywire. With all the extra hormones and everything that was going on, I went through a kind of mini spiritual awakening, I suppose, and it all went really, really mental. And at that point, at 15, I began to learn tarot and began channeling the energy, I suppose, in a way. And I began learning things like astral projection. And from about the age of 10, I was visiting the Akashic record halls, although I didn't know that that's what it was, but I would often sit and daydream and go to this lovely place that felt really amazing and things. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s where I was taking on a guided meditation. I thought, oh, hey, I've been here so many times. And then they were like, oh no, this is the Akashic record halls. And I'm like, you can call it what you like, but I've been going here since I was 10, So I've always had the gifts there, but at 23, I began to develop my mediumship by training my mediumship. So I'm what's known as a natural medium. I believe everybody on the planet can train mediumship, even if they haven't been born with a gift naturally switched on. You can learn how to switch it on. So that's one of the first things that I think is really important to say to people. It's not something that some people have and some people don't have. I believe that some people are born with it switched on. But even if you weren't born with it switched on, you can learn to switch it on later on in life, because it is one of the senses of the human experience that you can tap into. So just like, for instance, if you've never opened your eyes as a child, doesn't mean that you get to the age of 20 and you'd never opened your eyes, that you couldn't open your eyes and see. Of course you could. And it takes practice once you start. And that's what mediumship is. Good mediumship is somebody who is dedicated to their practice in developing that gift. Just like you're rubbish at tennis the first time you play, and then if you keep going back, you can get really good. But in amongst the people who play tennis are the people who are exceptionally gifted. And that's, the same with everything. Everybody can learn to read and write. Everybody can learn to develop and tap into their spiritual gifts. But amongst those, we will find the people who are exceptionally spiritually gifted. But that doesn't mean that you had to be born with it in order to be one of the exceptionally spiritually gifted. Because I've, introduced many, many people to mediumship, and I've introduced many people into their spiritual gifts and helped them tap into something that was just innately inside of them. And some of these ladies have got to it when they're in their 40s, early 40s, and are now amazing mediums. And really, really amazing, mediumship and quality of mediumship and evidential mediumship. So it isn't a case of, just because they didn't do it from, the age of 2, that they suddenly couldn't be amazing at 40. Of course they can be. So that's really, so at 23, I began to really develop, and I sat in circle for over 2 years. Every single week I turned up. I had my spot on my meditation pillow, and I sat in circle, and I learned to really harness what had been a very raw and very, very natural gift, and to learn to kind of control it a lot better. And I think that made all the difference, because before I wasn't really able to control it. So it was just, I would just know things. And now I can kind of, like, it sounds weird, but I can switch it on when I want to work, and I can switch it off when I don't want to work so much. The only thing I can't switch off is the colors around people.
That's very amazing. So I do not do the see. I don't see much. I've always been like kind of the opposite. I've always like felt energies, or well, not necessarily opposite, because I know people have different talents in different areas, but mine is just like feeling. But that's interesting and good to know that you can learn how to tap in.
Absolutely. And I mean, just because one of your senses is, my clairvoyant sense is really probably the strongest of my senses. And I never used to be clairaudient. You know, I would rarely hear, like I would, as a child now, when I look back, then I must have been clairaudient as a child. But after I shut my gifts down, I wasn't really clairaudient after then. But that's something that I've been able to reawaken and reopen is the clairaudience. And I've been in, I've helped many people really open the clairs that are not very open for them. So what you're describing is that you're very clairsentient, which means that you clearly sense energy and spirit. If you get knowings, like really, really strong knowings, that's known as claircognience. So that means that you have clear recognition, which is where cognience comes from. So it's and a precognitive is somebody who is having prophecies or the gift of prophecy. So and that was something that I had a lot as a child. I had a lot of claircognience and things like that would come. I would see scenes happen in my mind, and then a couple of days later they would be like playing out, and I would be able to finish the people's sentences and stuff, and it would feel a bit like Groundhog Day. I thought, I've seen this before, and and people describe that as deja vu, and that's children who experience a lot of deja vu. Well, it means that their energy centers are very open to what I call the unseen world. Now, the unseen world is actually the larger of the two worlds. We have the seen world, where we think that's reality, and we think that that's the solid world. But then we have the unseen world, where the unseen world is basically much larger. So everything that we experience in life once lived in the unseen world. So for instance, if I take my iPhone, for instance, somebody had to think about that first. And the minute that they thought about that idea of it, it was born and birthed into the unseen world. And when that idea started to gain mass and matter, the more attention that was given to that idea, it began to gain mass and matter. And there's like a membrane between the unseen world and the seen world. And when that appeared into the physical world, we see it as, well, somebody made that, so that's how it appeared. But actually what happened is it gained so much mass and energy in the unseen world that it came through the barrier and landed in the seen world. And yes, we have physical steps that we took to make that happen. But the thing is, if you look around where you're sitting, nothing that your eyes fell on did not once upon a time exist in the unseen world first. It all existed in the unseen world first, which is what's so cool.
Yeah. So do you have thoughts on like how to make that process from the unseen to the seen easier? Because I know for myself, it's like when you try to do everything on the physical realm, it seems like it's really, really hard. But when you align that energy first,
absolutely, it's about moving the energy in the unseen world and allowing that energy to gain momentum in the unseen world is what's needed in order to be physical manifestation. And I work really closely with teaching about manifestation with my spirit team. And one of the things that they say is that you are the conduit by which all things flow from the unseen into the seen. And a lot of people forget that they're the conduit. So the way that they describe in really visual, really easy examples, but one of the examples is that when you're trying to receive something from the unseen into the seen, it's like a Suki straw. It's like a straw that you get for a drink. Now, you can either blow in that straw or you can suck in that straw, basically, right? And so you're either receiving or you're giving. And so if you're constantly asking, then you're clogging your straw, your channel for receiving with your requests, and your requests speak of your lack. And so one of the things that you have to do is you have to move into receiving mode. So receiving mode is like if you ordered a sandwich, for instance, from a waiter, you don't feel the need to run into the kitchen and check that the chef's making it, preparing it. You trust that the waiter's written it down, got the order right, gone to the chef, delivered that order, the chef is preparing it. You trust that the waiter will come back in an allotted time, or when the bell rings, or whatever it needs to do in order to pick up that sandwich and then deliver that sandwich to your table. You don't sit there thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm getting this. Oh, no. So a big part of clearing that channel and helping the unseen thing that you want to gain mass momentum, a really big part of that is trust, learning to really trust that it's coming in, and learning to, and if you feel into the energy of trust, what does that feel like in your body? So you can close your eyes and you can see in your body, what does the energy of trust feels like? And you'll find that it feels like a very expansive feeling inside of you. And unfortunately, most people are trying to manifest from a very tight, restricted, contracted feeling. And of course, what they're doing is just like that Suki straw. Imagine tightening your hand over it. Now you're really blocking what can come up or down that straw, really, because your own energy is so tight. So your energy needs to loosen. And trust is what helps to loosen the process and be like, I trust that this is coming. I know that it's coming 100%. And then be open and available for receiving. Because many people, that's the hardest step is not actually the delivering of the thing that you want. It's the allowing of the receiving. Mm-hmm. So one of the probably the most amazing examples the Spirit gave me was a lovely lady that was at one of my workshops. And Spirit kept whispering in my ear, kept saying, you know, you can heal this lady, you can heal this lady. And I thought, I don't do hands-on healing. You know, I was really adamant with that. Like, I don't do hands-on healing. I don't know what you're talking about. But they were really persistent. And I thought, well, if I don't really do what's asked of me, they're probably going to be bugging me for the rest of the night. So at the end of the workshop, I said to another woman who is an amazing healer, I said, Spirit says that I can heal this other lady. Would you sit in on this? Because I literally am the first person to say, like, at that stage, it was about 15 years ago, I said, you know, like, I literally the first person to tell you, like, I don't know the first thing about healing. So so she agreed. And then I went up to the lady who I had been told that I could heal. And I said, you know, what, you know, I've been told by Spirit that I can heal you. And I'm going to be really honest with you. Like, I don't know the first thing about healing. Other than, like, I've received it and it's really nice, but I wouldn't even really know where to begin to do it. So I sit her down and I put my hands, and I could feel this like warm tingling energy on my hands, and I could feel the energy moving and everything. And but it became very, very aware very quickly of these little gem chip bracelets on my wrist. And as I became aware of those little gem chip bracelets, I said to her, you know, if you've seen these in a shop, would you buy them? And she said, sure. And they're like about £2-3. So I said, would you buy them? She said, yeah, sure. Then I was shown a gold ring in my mind's eye, and I said, if you've seen this gold ring in a shop, would you buy it? And it was about £250. She went, no. And okay. Then some time passed and it started to get a bit awkward. So I said, I repeated the story again. And then I said, you know, Spirit, say that you know what that story means. To which she replied, no. I was a bit like, oh, okay. But then she turned around and she went, well, give me this one thing. And I said, okay. And it turned out the lady had a prosthetic leg, and the leg that she'd been fitted with was 2 inches too short and was causing her a lot of pain and discomfort. And her greatest wish was to receive in a new leg. And so she but the new leg cost £10,000, you know, so it was a lot of money. But she put it out to the universe, and she said, I've tried everything. I've put it out, I've tried to manifest this leg, I can't get this leg. The only thing that's happened is my son has offered to pay for it. So I went, okay, so let me get this straight. I said, you asked the universe for a new leg, and the universe, in the quickest, most expedient way, has tried to deliver your new leg, and now you're refusing to accept it. And she said, no, that's not what happened. And then the words sort of died in her mouth, and she went, that's what's happened, isn't it? And I said, yeah. And she said, oh my God. And I said, well, no wonder you can't accept your leg in. And she said, why? And I said, well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but somewhere between £3 and £250 lays your self-worth. Because we know that the £250 ring, you wouldn't buy that for yourself. But the £3 jewelry you would buy for yourself. So somewhere in between there, we have what you feel you are worthy of. And I said, your leg's £10,000. It's way out of your own league that you have placed yourself into. So she got really emotional. She burst into tears, and I kind of burst into tears with her. And I said, well, look, it's going to be okay. And she said, well, what will I do? And I gave her all these exercises to develop her self-love muscle, basically, and to start developing self-love for herself, and to place herself on a place within herself of being worthy and feeling worthy. And so off she went, and she had this list full of exercises, and I gave her a couple of books that I really recommended to help her with her journey. And 4 months later, I was hosting a mediumship demonstration, and she walked through the doors. She held her crutches aloft, and it was one of probably the most amazing points in my life, where she said, I got my new leg. And she had this amazing beaming smile on her face, and she was just glowing. It was the only way that you could describe her energy. Her energy was just glowing with this newfound confidence and a surety. And she just said, you do not believe the amount of things I've changed in my life. Like, so many things have changed in my life. My life is so much better on every single front. Like, it's not just that I got my new leg, like, there's just everything. She said, it's just so much better. And she goes, I used to have a person who used to come around and help me around the house, and they were really horrible, and they were really like nasty, and I never wish that person ill, but I really wish that they would find another job. And she said, when I knew that the self-love thing was working, she says, when they came in and said, oh, I'm really sorry, but I found another job. And she was just like, and she goes, I got the most sweetest, loveliest person that comes and helps me in my home now, and she's wonderful, and she's so lovely, and she's so upbeat and everything. And she said, just couldn't have asked the universe for somebody better. But I realized that horrible person that I used to have before, she said, I realized that's what I felt like all I deserved. And when I started valuing myself, I can see the shift that I made, and I obviously deserve more, because I believed that I deserved more. So I got this other person in, and it was just a wonderful example of how we often reject the delivery. The delivery comes, and then we're not open, we're not deliverable, we can't receive it in, because, and it comes up against, and every single time when we can't receive something in, it comes up against our own self-worth. So, you know, if anybody's listening that is struggling with manifestation, then look to your own self-worth. And if you begin to heal the gaps there, that will massively, massively change things for you, and you will be able to receive in much quicker.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I know you've got a book called Get Selfish, which is probably a really, really good tool for somebody who's in that.
Absolutely.
Situation. So can you share a little bit about that book and your philosophy?
So Get Selfish is really my own journey of self-love, because I used to have been an entrepreneur for nearly 20 years now, and my first, between the age of 23 and 26, I built 4 six-figure businesses, and then I worked in them all. So everybody knows that story doesn't end well. And I worked loads of hours, and I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I was really, really miserable. I was lying to myself constantly. I was telling myself I was living the dream. I was, you know, my own boss and all this thing. But the reality was that I worked 72 hours a week, and for 7 years straight, I hadn't taken 1 week's holiday, not one. And I had not had more than 2 days off together. You know, I don't think in most years I only took like 1 day off at a time, and that was it, you know. So it was hard, and I was probably the worst boss that you could ever imagine somebody having, and I was that boss to myself, which sucked really bad, because you could have actually changed it at any given time. And then I hit this massive burnout, and the burnout resulted in multiple organ failure. I collapsed at home. I was rushed to hospital, and there wasn't a soft tissue organ in my body that was not failing, like every single one of them. Like, my digestive system had stopped digesting food, my heart, my lungs were not working properly, my liver, my kidneys, everything was shutting down. What the doctor described to me is, this is what we see in somebody who's like 90 years of age and who's in the process of dying of old age. We don't see this in somebody who's just, you know, turned 30 and relatively fit and healthy. We have no idea, and there was no viral or bacterial reason. In 3 days of laying in a hospital bed, I had a massive epiphany, and the epiphany was multi-layered, but the first layer of the epiphany was that this was the first 3 days off that I had had in 7 years. And it took for my body to give me what I had refused to give myself, even though I desired it, even though I wanted it. I had refused to give myself it because of the stories that I told myself, that whatever I did, it wasn't enough. I had to keep working. I had to keep going. I was on this treadmill. I had to just keep going. And so the second epiphany that I had was that there's got to be more to life. And at the time, I had no idea about the law of attraction. I didn't even know that the law of attraction was a thing or existed or anything. But that was huge, because I didn't realize that the minute that I posed the question, there's got to be more to life, that the universe became obliged to answer me, which was really huge, because before that, my loop thought in my mind had been life is shit. So basically, you know, when you have that thought, it's a closed circuit. You can only create more of that statement, right? And I was certainly shoveling that every day. I was every day, Joanna was showing up for life and shoveling more crap, you know? So it wasn't until I changed that loop thought and I said, you know, like, there's got to be more to life. And this was an energy opening question. I didn't know about energy opening questions, but you know, you don't need to know about them in order for it to work. So this massively worked in my energy field. My energy just opened to new possibilities. And then it was like I was stalked by the law of attraction. Everywhere I went, there it was. And eventually I gave up, and I thought, right, okay, I'm going to read about this thing. And it completely changed and revolutionized my life. So Get Selfish, my book, became my journey of healing. It became my self-healing journey of where I healed from chronic fatigue, which was one of the aftermaths of multiple organ failure, which was pretty good, considering that I was told to write my letters to my children in hospital. So I was told I wasn't going to survive. And so if the outcome was chronic fatigue afterwards, I could deal with that. You know, that was better than you know, than not being here. So I was like, okay. And I just began using the law of attraction to heal myself. But I also began realizing very quickly that self-love had to feature. And I didn't know the first thing. And so one of the other epiphanies that I had in the hospital was that I had really abused myself extremely. You know, my drug of choice was not illicit, illegal drugs. My drug of choice was being a workaholic. I worked every hour that I could possibly work. And even when I came home, I continued working, you know? So that was my kind of addiction, I suppose, in a way, that I had to work through and go through. So I, and you know, in a way, it's kind of harder because nobody really complains when you work too hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like, oh, that's illegal, you shouldn't be doing that, right? There's nothing to police you other than yourself. So I began to heal, and 7 steps came from that healing journey, and those are the 7 steps that I talk about in my book, Get Selfish. And the reason that the title is called Get Selfish is that as I began to heal, I had to do the one thing that I had always rejected, that I'd always been so deadly against, which was to put myself first. I'd always put everybody else before me. And I realized that if I was going to survive, I would have to do the one thing that I'd always thought of as selfish, and I was going to have to put myself first. And then as I began to heal and I became a life coach through that process, I used to tell the process to the 7 steps to all my clients. And without fail, every single client would reply, but that's selfish. And I would say, yes. And if I ever write a self-help book, it will be called Get Selfish. Because a lot of people don't understand that they're a vessel, and a vessel can only contain a certain amount before it overflows. And so the problem that people have with selfishness or doing something for yourself is that you think you're never going to be done. But because you're a vessel and you can only hold so much fulfillment, the minute that you're at full, you will just seek to share that with everybody else. And that's what happened with my process. And it happened with so many of my clients. I would always know when my clients were at a fulfilled level, because most of them would turn around and say, I want to be a life coach. And at that stage, I would know, like, yes, I've done it, because they're so fulfilled now. They just want to give what they'd received to other people. And that's what Get Selfish is all about. Get Selfish is about filling yourself up, filling your vessel, so that you can come to that stage where you are so fulfilled within yourself that you can give to other people. And that's a big, huge part of it. And through that journey, I suppose in a way, I went through a kind of second awakening of where I realized that my true heart had always been with the spiritualism. When the crap was hitting the fans in the shop or the cafe that I had and all the other businesses that I had, the one place that I would always return to would be either my meditation pillow or my deck of cards, like a deck of oracle cards or a deck of tarot cards. And it was the place that I would always return to. And I realized that this was, not only was it my saving grace, but I realized that this is most likely what I've been put on this planet for, was to work with something spiritual. And at that time, I had no idea what that would be.
Sure. That's amazing. Journey. But the fact that you went through that journey, now you're helping so many other people with what you learned in the process. So I guess
exactly. It's all about that fulfillment. Once you're fulfilled, you've got the energy to help other people. You're never helping other people from that base of empty. Yeah. And I think that that's what the problem is. So many people want to help others before they've helped themselves. And if you don't even know what fulfillment looks like for yourself, like, where's the logic in trying to think that you can do that fulfillment for other people? Because of course you're always going to be, kind of at a loss because you don't even know what it looks like for yourself.
Yeah. I know you have a spirit team that you work with, and you mentioned them before telling you about healing the ladies. So can you share a little bit about your spirit team and how you work with them?
Definitely. So my spirit team are quite different, I suppose, in a way, to kind of like just your kind of traditional guides and things. That's how they started off when I began to meet my guides, and I learned about my guides and things, and I started to learn about these guides and guardian angels and things that everybody has. Now everybody has these, and I've introduced many people to their guides and guardian angels over time. But as I began to go down my spiritual path much more and develop much more, I began to develop a much closer relationship with my guides, and I began to blend with my guides. And what that means is that my energy would blend with theirs so completely that I couldn't really tell where I started or where they ended. And as that relationship continued to develop, it really started to kind of flow through my mediumship, where now we have developed such a relationship that I have such trust for them that I allow myself to really take a huge big step back in my human incarnation, and I allow my spirit team to take a massive step forward and to really use me as a vessel for bringing forward conversations with, I call them conversations with Source. And so the name of my spirit team is Skylar, and I invite people in my audience to come and literally ask any question that they want. And what I'll do is will get myself into an altered state of consciousness, which sounds very fancy, but like meditation is an altered state of consciousness. If you've been driving along on a road and you can't remember the last few miles, you were in an altered state of consciousness. So we go into these altered states of consciousness all the time. I just happen to purposefully put myself into that state of consciousness, a different state of consciousness. And when I'm there, I'm able to take a step back in my here and now consciousness and be able to bring them forward fully. And as I bring them forward fully, they're able to use my body and speak through me and really just share the most sublime, amazing wisdom with my audience, which it's, I'm always blown away at the simplicity of what they bring forward. It's so simple that you could tell it to a 2-year-old and they could understand it. But it's so simple, like you go afterwards, you're always like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Because we're up here somewhere trying to figure it all out, and then they come along and they'll just say something, like they'll answer somebody, and it's just such a beautiful, sublime simplicity. And I remember there's an amazing quote by Leonardo da Vinci who said that the ultimate form of sophistication is simplicity, and that's what they do. They just make life so simple, and it's so understandable and so logical. And so many of my audience just say, you know, like, bam, oh my God, you know, it's like that is resonating with me. And that's what it is, because they're speaking spiritual truth. And spiritual truth is not something that you learn, it's something that you rediscover within you. It's already been there, it's always been within you. So when you hear other teachers who speak spiritual truths, and the one that I get often compared to is obviously Esther Hicks with Abraham. When you hear Abraham's spiritual truths, it's not like, oh, that's the first time I've heard something like that. It's a different energy. It's a bit like you remember again something that you always knew deep down inside. It's not that, you know, not that like, oh, bam, that was a great piece of information. No, it's more like, oh yes, and you feel it inside of you. You feel it, that it is the truth, and you know it's like somewhere deep down in the back of your mind you remember that's what it is. That's why that was the thing I couldn't get to when I was searching and doing all my searching and everything. And that's one of the things I love about spiritual truth, because I really believe that true spiritual truth doesn't tell you anything new. It just helps you remember what you already knew.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know I've been listening to you talking about the 333 energy and the light web, and you're teaching the classes on it, and I'm so intrigued by it. So I know everybody else would be too. So can you share a little bit about that, the new energies that are coming through you?
Just absolutely phenomenal. So about 4.5 months ago now, I received a download. I knew that the download was coming in, and for about 8 months I was trying to bring this download through. I started a mastermind called Be Magic, because I knew it was about reactivating people's magic. And I brought in this mastermind, and it sold out in 11 days. It was brilliant, and it was all to bring this energy through. And I feel like the mastermind got me ready to receive in the download of 333 magic. So what 333 magic is first of all a light web activation. So what is light web? good question. So what is light web? Well, light web is basically like a web of light that connects everything in the cosmos, like everything. And once you become light web activated, you can access that web of light. And it's a very high vibrational web of light. And it's like a super highway. So if you imagine the way synapses in a brain work, we have these nodules, and then we have the little ganglia, which is the little synapses that link to the other nodules. Well, the light web's like a giant version of that, but it's almost like the brain of the cosmos. So once you tap into that and you're activated to tap into that, and I call it a soul-based technology, because that's what it is. It's a technology. Once you tap into that technology, it really kind of, your life becomes magical, and you become more empowered. You see things before where you would have seen them from a lower level. You now observe life from a much higher level. And because you're observing it from a much higher level, you can see much more. So whereas before you would have seen problems, as you move and elevate your consciousness, so it really elevates your consciousness, you begin to see opportunities instead. You realize like, oh, this is just an opportunity for my spiritual growth. Oh, this is just being presented to me because I asked for this thing over here. And so this thing, annoying as it might be right now, is readying me for this thing that I asked for over here. And so we begin to see the interconnectedness of everything, and we can see it all in the light web, and we can see how it all works. And the light web comes with a framework, and the framework breaks down into three pieces basically. So the first piece is the insights. The second piece is the concepts, and the third piece is the steps, and they relate to soul, mind, and body. The soul steps are you, source, and co-creation. So we go deep in there, we go into who you are, who is source, who is the co-creation, what is the co-creation, the blending of you and source together, what is the co-creation. Then we go into the concepts, and the concepts are about mastery, empowerment, and freedom. And so we go into these three concepts, and when you adopt those three concepts as yourself, and you adopt them as though they are your own, you will forever stay in an empowered state of being. That will be the last time that you will ever feel disempowered in life. Then when you apply the physical steps, which is the body steps, it's dream, plan, and action. And those are the three physical steps that you need in order to manifest anything that you want or create anything that you want in life. We need to first dream it, then we need to plan it, and then we need to action it and create the action part. And the action part is the piece that's often missing in manifestation, because a lot of people just think, yeah, I'm just going to ask for this thing. And then they're just like waiting. But I call it meeting the universe at the end of the road. So there's certain things that we can do. And the reason I use this example is that we used to live in a very rural house. And at the end of the road, the school bus would come. Now, my kids could lay in their bed and go, there's no way for me to get to school. And it would have been true. It would have been far too far for them to walk to get to school. But if they got up, got dressed, had their breakfast, walked to the end of the road, the bus would come and get them. And sometimes we need to do all of those steps so that we can get the thing that will actually take us the whole way to the road. And most people are very reluctant, or they don't understand that they actually need to action their own steps of what is possible for them right now. Because whereas the whole journey was impossible for my child, it was totally within the realm of possibility of getting out of bed, eating breakfast, getting washed and clothed, and walking to the end of that road. It was simple for them. They could easily do that. And so I always use that example because I think it's such an easy example to say, oh yes, okay, the bus comes at the end of the road, but we had to get ourselves ready for the end of the road, to get to the end of that road before something came along and helped us. And so in the action module, we talk a lot about that. So that is basically the framework that goes with 333 magic, and it's the energy is really for the energy of ascension and ascending in your own spiritual beingness. All the students that have been part of 333 magic already are just reporting such amazing, phenomenal changes. Many of them are saying that even when they have a crap day now, it's like never like it was before. Like they would live there for weeks sometimes. They're like, they can just sail through it. They just move through the energy so much faster, so much quicker. So it's not like it doesn't remove any crap days. They still happen to you, but the way that they deal with it's totally different. Like they just say it's night and day, it's just, and they know, and they never feel as bad as they ever felt like when they have, when they used to have crap days in the past. They feel like they've got a set of tools, because I teach a load of really amazing spiritual tools that are so easy and so simple to use, and you can whip them out at any time and use them in your life. And they just really begin to increase people's awareness. It opens up their intuitive gifts. They become much more intuitive as a result. They begin to live from an intuitive space, which is so much handier than living from a place of where like, oh, I wonder what that's going to happen. Instead, they can intuit and feel, how can I connect in with that? How can I open that up? How can I open this experience for myself and things? So manifestation is always massively increased with many of the students. And the biggest report that I get back from most of the students is this sense of calm, peace, and contentment that they feel on a consistent basis. They feel so different. And that for me is the real magic of 333 magic, is really connecting. And what I'm really doing on a vibrational level, because I can see their energy, I can see how massively some of them, their vibration has changed so much. It's going up by several hundred points, some of them. And so the average population at the moment, it's vibrating at 205, which is out of a scale out of 1,000. Currently on the planet, we only have 7 people, or not 7 people, sorry. We only have 12 people vibrating at 700 and above. So 700 is on the scale of consciousness is enlightenment. And enlightenment goes right the way from 700 up to 1,000. And we only have 12 people that are vibrating at that really, really high vibration. When you start to vibrate at these much higher levels in frequency, some really exciting stuff happens. So when you start to vibrate at love or above, so love is 500, and when you begin to vibrate at 500 or above, vibrating at 500 means that just by you being you, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to chase anyone down, you don't have to teach anyone anything, you just have to be you. And being at that high vibration of 500, you affect 10,000 people just in your vicinity. You will automatically raise their vibration just by you being you. When you get into the realms of 700, you start to affect about 1 million people just by you being you. And then up into the higher echelons of that, we start to we vibrate even higher, and then we're starting to affect up to tens of millions of people, and we don't have to do anything. We just, by us being us. So in the 1970s, they did a really cool experiment called the Maharishi experiment, where they took people who were calibrating at enlightenment and they placed them in cities around the world. And these cities began having like total changes. Like there was one guy who was placed in near a school district in Brooklyn, and this school, they weren't doing that great, the students in that school, but their IQ rose.
Wow.
Which is crazy. The stock markets in Tel Aviv and another place where they placed went up massively, went up by 2.5 points or something like that, which is a massive shift in stock markets apparently. And so lots of these changes happen when they place these yogini monks that just had this amazing ability. So yeah, it's very, very interesting work through 3 magic, because really, you know, Source gave me the ability to activate people into the light web, which was a difficult thing for me because I'd never really seen the point in anybody activating anybody for anything, because I thought, in my mind, I always used to think, well, surely people can just do it themselves. And the explanation they gave me for that, because I was like, I'm not activating people. That was my first that was my first thoughts to my spirit team when they said, we want you to activate people into the light. I'm like, I'm not doing that. You know, because I said I can teach them how to do it, but I'm not going to tell them that I'm activating them. And there's a no, you have to activate their energy. And so how they described it to me is that if something is not in popular culture, and there's a field of energy called the morphogenic field where everything is connected. And he said, if something is not in the popular culture, then it's not in the morphogenic field. And if it's not in the morphogenic field, it is not available for the every man and woman to be able to download. They have to be shown. They have to be activated into it. And so once there's a certain number of people in the light web, then it will become popular. It'll like become part of popular culture, and then other people will just be able to tap in and be able to pull the energy through that way themselves naturally. But up until that point, when there isn't enough people in the light web and using the light web, then it needs somebody to help them to activate. So that made sense to me a lot. It made me feel happy about doing the work that I'm doing now. But just, you know, and that was before I even introduced anybody to the light web. So I had no idea really what was going to happen, how it was going to affect people or anything. And the results have just been crazy. I mean, just what people are saying and how much their lives have changed. But I think the biggest thing that makes me so proud to do this work for Source is because it's so humbling to know that these people have now got a toolbox that they can go to. Doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter what's going on. They have this toolbox that they can go to and rely on and keep their vibration high, even while, you know, the crap might be hitting the fan outside and around them. One of my lovely clients in the last round that lost her brother very suddenly. He was, you know, it was really, really sudden death and really sudden passing. And she wrote to me and said, I'm actually so glad that when this happened, if this could have happened at any time, this happened at the best time, because it happened while I had the support of 333 Magic, but also all of these tools. And she said, you know, Joanna, I have to tell you how much comfort these tools are not only giving me, but my parents as well. Like they're you know, they're helping my parents who are not woo woo in any way, shape, or form. And those tools are so easy and so simple that they're helping us all through this. And I felt, you know, that was a real testament to what Source has given me to teach, because the whole thing was downloaded. I mean, one minute it was not in my brain, and the next minute it was fully in my brain, and I was like, whoa. So yes, I love it. But this is what our ancient ancestors, so this is a lost technology in a way, because this is what my spirit team tell me, this is what our ancestors used. So they used to build these megaliths and to build the megaliths and things like that. They used the light web. This is where they got their dimensions from. This is where they got their technology that they were using as a soul-based technology, which is why we cannot figure out how they did it. Because we can think, right, okay, well, did they have cranes? Did they have, you know, and then we know that they didn't have modern machinery. So we're like, how did they do it? But the thing is that we're not looking at the problem from the right perspective. We need to look at the problem from the higher perspective. And when we realize that they used a soul-based technology, which the soul-based technology taps 100% into the unseen world, this is how they were able to create these amazing buildings. This is how they were able to get them so accurate. So what my spirit team say is, between these nodules is literally molecules, and light web is the space in between the molecules. So the accuracy of these buildings are not accurate to a millimeter, they're accurate to a molecule. That's what they've said to me, and it makes just so much sense. Yeah. And they use the soul base. And in the past, one of the things that's happened with Lightweb, and one of the reasons that I've been now asked to teach this and to share this message with the world, is that Lightweb never used to be for every man, woman, and child. It used to be just for certain people that were at a certain level of energy. So they had to be at a very high frequency of energy. And then many of them had probably sat in meditation since childhood right the way through. And then, they would eventually be able to access this technology. And this is why, in ancient Egypt, for instance, the architects were buried with such pomp and prestige and everything like that, because they were literally like spiritual gurus. They had a skill that other people didn't have, because they were accessing a technology that most people weren't high enough vibration to access. What has happened over the years, it's a damnedest thing, but this is what my spirit team has said, is that once they started to see the evolution of the internet, they were looking at the internet and they were thinking, hey, we have one of those. And they were seeing how it had changed the face of technology and how it had completely revolutionized, and now how it's so commonplace for a computer or for somebody to be able to connect in with the internet. But then all this exchange of knowledge is happening, and they were thinking, hey, we had one of those, but we don't have that many people on it, because there's not that many people vibrating that high. So one of the things that they began doing massively is upgrading the energy that holds the field of the light web. And they began to massively upgrade the energy. So things like the popularity and the rise in popularity of yoga and meditation, these are all methods that Source have used to upgrade the light web and to bring the consciousness, or to change and shift the consciousness so that more people can access this. So now you don't have to be at this super high level. You don't have to be like almost at enlightenment before you can access Lightweb. You can be at a lower level of consciousness and then use Lightweb to actually catapult you into a higher level of consciousness, which is really, really cool, which is one of the reasons why they want me to teach it, to get more people, because they know the more people that are using Lightweb and connected with Lightweb, the more the consciousness of the planet begins to rise.
And so then it's going to make it easier and easier for other people, correct?
Eventually, in my kids' generation, it will probably be like, oh, Lightweb, it's just what everybody uses, isn't it? Because they're like, oh, internet's just what everybody uses. And I'm like, no, we had dial-up connection, we had all that stages before it's just ended up on one of these,
Right.
So and it's the same, it will be the same, and it will just help to upgrade the consciousness of the humanity. And it's really like, I mean, if you want an answer, you can go to the light web. If you want to know how to do something, you can go to the light web. If you want to invite an energy into your life, you can go to the light web. You can literally use it for anything. Like, there's nothing that I have found that it cannot be used for. I've been and even though, you know, like, I've gotten over my healer, I'm not a healer. And so I've even used it for healing. And one of my clients, I'll see if I can find it, but one of my clients shared the most amazing picture. I'd been sending her healing. She'd been so can you see that?
Oh yeah. Wow.
Right. Well, I've been sending her healing, and I asked the light web. So I was connecting into light web. I was sending healing through the light web to her, and I said, I would really love to know that this is reaching her. And so the very next morning, she posted this, and she said, I woke up from a nap, and this was on my wall, and it was just long enough for me to call my mom. My mom witnessed it. I was able to take the picture, and as soon as I took the picture, it was gone.
Wow.
So, but that is what I see when I connect to light web. But imagine if you can see this and you can just see it as far as the eye will go. That is light web. So it's just incredible. And I mean, literally, when I seen it, it was just, to me, that was just proof positive that, you know, that this is a real energy. This is a real thing.
So if somebody wants to get activated, they should sign up for the 333. That's
333 Magic course, yes. So the 333 Magic course, you get the framework, you get the toolbox, you get meditations in there, and then we do light web activations. And the next round for that course is, at the moment, we've just had 2 rounds. So the next round enrollment starts in September, and then 1st of October is when we start off, and 1st of October will be the light web activation on the 1st of October for that one.
so they can go to your website though and get on your list, and then they'll know because you'll
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. If they get on my list, they can get to know. So it's just to go to joannahunter.com, and then they can get on the list there as well. I do have another program that is part of, so Lightweb is part of a bigger kind of, it's part of the 3 sets of programs basically. So they're called the 396 pathway. It's really just a spiritual pathway. There's many different pathways. And this is just a spiritual pathway to higher form of consciousness. So the first part of that is a new membership that I've just opened. In fact, it just launched today. It's called 111 Magic, and it's all about exploring your spiritual side in a really safe environment. It's just a monthly, you're not tied into anything. You can leave at any time. So you just a monthly subscription. And I'm super excited about it because I'm bringing some really amazing teachers in to help me in the community as well. And it's just learning to develop and explore your soulful spiritual mindset side. So it's really mindset, spirituality, and the soul all in one area to kind of help you explore that. There's some great energy courses in there as well in the thing. And then every month you will get a brand new course every month that we will launch in there as well, which I'm really excited about. And that is the 3 on the 396 pathway, because if you add all the ones together, you get 3. If you add all the 3s together, you get 9. And then the final piece is if you've taken 333 Magic. I realized very quickly when Source had given me this that this was a big job, because literally the job is to really activate everybody on the planet, and I can't do that as a single person. It's not a one woman job. So I realized very quickly that I would need to teach other teachers to be able to do a light web activation, and to be able to work with the framework, and then to teach the framework onto other people, so that the light web activation is only part of it, because once you're activated into the light web, but maintaining your connection to light web, that is the piece where we need the framework to make sure that our vibration stays high enough to be able to continue to access into that form of consciousness. So in January 2019, I will launch my first round of the teacher trainer program where I'll teach other people how to do a light web activation, how to activate their people, how to work with a framework, how to develop a course that will be uniquely theirs, but the principles of the nine steps of the framework and the principles of the divine laws, and then the principle of the light web activation will remain the same, but they will create, through that course, they will create their own version of it, using whatever medium and modality that is their thing, right? So there's one lady that comes into my mind, and she uses her music. She works with her music. So she would use a framework, she would use learning the light web activation, but then she would probably combine that in with her love of music. And so therefore she would probably become a light web teacher for musicians. And somebody else, like for instance, there's another lady that pops into my mind that said, you know, she would really very much like to do it. And she works with healing and nutrition. So she would develop a course that would work through the healing, and the nutrition would be the big features of her course. And she would then be a light web activator for people who are maybe really resonating with energy healing or want to learn more about energy healing and things like that. So they would work more on the healing aspect of the light web. So that's what I'm seeing and envisioning for my teachers, is that the course will be very unique in the fact that what they will take is they will take that framework and I will teach them that framework. But then through the course, we will develop their own individual course and how it's going to look. And then it can unfold into anything that they need it to be, but the principles will be the same. The light web will be the same. The connections to the light web will all be the same. But it's just showing the diversity, I think, of what Source is really envisioning for this. Because, you know, not every teacher, many teachers can deliver one message, but it's how that teacher delivers that message that makes it stick in the student's mind or not.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's how they want me to honor this work, is that they want me to honor the individuality of the teacher, and recognize that that teacher will have its very own pupils to teach, and they need to learn from that teacher with their own unique flavor into the work. Like my students need to learn from me in the way that they learn from me. You know, somebody else would come along and say almost exactly the same stuff, and it just may not stick with my students because my students needed to learn from me, whereas somebody else might be teaching something and those students needed to learn from that person.
Yeah, and we each have our own unique energy resonance that we can.
Totally, our own unique frequency. And, you know, so, and that's part of it as well, is that your frequency that you're resonating at will change the work. It's like, it's like the facets of a diamond almost, you know, like they're all part of the diamond, and the diamond really is the light web and the framework, but the facets all glimmer and refract light at different frequencies, and this will do the same.
I'm gonna just see. So if somebody is like a total newbie, and they're going to go sign up and get on the list, so they'll know when it's coming out. But like in the meantime, is there something simple, like a simple practice they could do to start raising their vibration and manifesting more?
Absolutely. I mean, my favorite practice of all is gratitude journaling. Gratitude, deep heartfelt gratitude, resonates at 720 on the scale of consciousness. So just by embodying deep heartfelt gratitude, your own consciousness will rise so much. To give you an idea of how big a deal that is, Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi both resonated at 710. Right. So by you embodying gratitude, deep heartfelt gratitude for your life, for the things in your life and everything, and you will naturally increase and raise your vibration massively. Not only will you feel better about yourself, because we naturally love grateful people, and when we become one of those grateful people, our own self-esteem rises, our own self-confidence rises, and all that good stuff comes with it as well. What we think about, we expand in our life experience. It's just basics of law of attraction, like energy attracts like energy. So when we think grateful thoughts, we attract more things in that we will feel grateful for. So as I say to my students, everything that you've ever wanted lives at the energy frequency of gratitude. So, you know, like if you think about it, like if I was to wave my magic wand and give you whatever you wanted right now, you feel so grateful. Right? So we know that that's a frequency that everything that you've ever wanted lives at. And the laws of physics tell us that if we match the frequency, like the resonance of something like a tuning fork, for instance, if you've got a tuning fork that is tuned to the tone D, and you've got a room full of people holding tuning forks, and you hit your tuning fork, anybody else that's holding a D-tuned tuning fork, they don't even need to touch theirs. Theirs will also start to vibrate because the frequencies are in match and they start to vibrate together. They start to resonate together. And it's exactly the same when we start to, if we will be grateful for those things, then the frequency of our creation of those live at gratitude. And once we start to embody gratitude, we literally just open up the superhighway for them to flood into our lives. So it's why it's my favorite tool. It's so simple and it's so overlooked because it's so simple. People think this cannot change my life. It's way too easy. It's way too simple. Not only can it raise your consciousness, it can raise your vibration. It makes you magnetic to everything that you've ever wanted. It's just the best all-round tool that there is out there. I always tell my students, if I could only teach you one thing, I would teach you gratitude. Because I know that if I taught somebody gratitude and they do it as a daily practice, and their vibration will change. And I know that as their vibration changes, their life will improve.
Yep, it has to happen that way, right?
It has to happen. Can't be any other way. This is a cool thing. So I actually have a Get Selfish Gratitude journal, which combines another one of my favorite tools, which is affirmations. So the gratitude journal is beautiful. One side you get to write your gratitudes, and on the other side for that day you will get a really powerful, tried and tested affirmation to use for the day as well, to set a really powerful intention out into the universe. And the gratitude journal will take it'll take 9 weeks, so you get 9 full weeks to fill that gratitude journal in. By that time you will have well developed the habit. If you just set yourself as getting one of those journals and working through it and trying to make it a daily practice. And if you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. You know, that's counterproductive. Instead, just keep going. But at the end of those 9 weeks, your own brain is so habitual, it will start to look for that gratitude journal because you've taught it now. And it takes about 21 days for a habit to develop, but you've had way more than 21 days in your 9 weeks. So you've had like 3 times that amount. So what you're going to do is by the time you get to your 9th week, your brain's like, come on, where's the gratitude journal? Let's go, you know? So you've already shifted and changed your brain chemistry as well with it, which makes it so powerful. But it's you know, it's really pretty inside. It's full color inside. And it's really beautiful, and the affirmations are lovely. And then after you've used the book and you filled it all up, you can still sit with the book and open it randomly at a page and get one of the gorgeous affirmations for the day if you want to do it that way as well.
Wow. So I'll find a link for that and put it in. I'll put it in the comments here, and then if somebody's listening on the podcast, we'll put that in the show notes too.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much for taking the time. This has been amazing for me, and I know it's got to have been amazing for everybody else who listens now and on the podcast. And I just want to remind everybody to go to your website. It's just joannahunter.com, right? And I think we've got the link there. And sign up, and that way you will know when her light web activation in the 333 magic is coming out. Thank you. You gave so much good information here for people, and I just appreciate you and your time and your energy, because I'm getting high vibe just from sitting here talking to you.
Thank you so much. It's just been an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you. And I hope that it, you know, lights the way for someone, because that's what it's all about. I've always said I've had a sneaky agenda since the day that I got here, and that's to raise the vibration of the planet. And it's not such a sneaky agenda, because I tell everybody what it is. But I really feel like, you know, that the more people that do this work and that hear the calling of their soul and are willing to step up, the more and more the consciousness of this planet rises. And as it does, we will join a much higher frequency than what we are currently experiencing on this earth. And I really do believe that it is possible to create heaven on earth. I really just believe that's through frequency. And that's one of the real principles of the Guest Selfish work. The basis of it is that I really truly do not believe that we will eliminate world war until we eliminate our own inner conflict. If each individual makes their inner peace 100% their priority, we could within a generation eliminate war, eliminate any of the hardships that we're facing. And you know, that is my kind of agenda in a way, in working and doing the work that I do, is to help people make that shift in consciousness, and see that they need to take care of their own vibration, and in doing so it's such a gift to the world.
Yeah, I think people think they want to fight against war, or they want to fight against these things, and it seems counterintuitive that giving yourself peace is going to give us peace. But once you start realizing that everything is a mirror for what's going on inside.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big things is just that when you understand the scale of consciousness, that's a huge piece. When you understand that you just resonating a love or above, that's you resonating 500, the frequency of 500. Once you're resonating a frequency of 500, you don't have to do anything. Not one thing do you need to do, but you affect 10,000 people just by you being you. You will raise the vibration of 10,000 people just by you resonating at love. And if you continue on that journey and move up through the consciousness, you get to 700. And at 700, you are now in the very outer limits of you're just popped into the scale of enlightenment now. You're moving into enlightenment. And at 700, you affect 1 million people. You just have to show up. But this is the cool thing with this is what I call it, the energy, especially at 700 and above in those levels. You leave what I call legacy energy. And so Mahatma Gandhi's, my favorite quote in the whole world is, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." That's legacy energy. That's legacy energy. He doesn't even have to be living, breathing, alive for me to feel his vibration and to feel that heightened vibration, because that's my favorite quote, because that's what I want to embody each and every day. I want to be the change that I wish to see in this world, you know. And that's the power of raising your consciousness. And I think that's, you know, and that's available to everybody. Isn't that exciting? Like, that's the most exciting thing ever.
It's amazing that, you know, we all have the ability to affect change on such a huge level in the world. And if we think we're not powerful, we're so wrong.
Absolutely. I think, do you know what? I think deep down in our souls and deep down and right into the roots of us, we do know that we're powerful. But I think that scares us probably more than the fact that we may not be powerful.
Yeah.
Because then it's kind of like, uh-oh, okay, the buck really does stop with me. I really could change this world. And I feel, you know, the greatest gift that we can give is just to be willing to show up for oneself, and to be willing to shine your best light, shine your brightest light, because that's what you leave for other people.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's a beautiful note to end on for everybody. And they can find you at the website and all the links in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time and your energy and all that you're doing in the world, because you're making a big difference.
Thank you. You too. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody.